Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Y'all in the room with us this morning? Y'all excited to be here? Y'all are probably wondering why in the world I have a bucket that says me on it. I'm going to get there. Before we really get started, I really want to talk. We kind of had a direction we wanted to go this morning, and then we scratched it. We did something different, and then this week we did something. We were like, no, this is the direction we need to go, because it's all going to set up the next whole month. January is kind of a cool month. We get an extra week to the month. And so we've got 4 weeks after this week where we're going to be talking about that phrase that I use, change happens here. And I'm telling you, I'm sorry in advance, because you're probably going to get tired at some point in time of hearing that over the next year, because that's really going to be what our whole year as a church is about, is how change happens here. But I want to go a step further this morning. I want to say how it starts. And so I want to cover some things about our church. I know there's some people in the room that are brand new today. There's people in the room that have joined us within the last few months. There's people that have not set in on Life Connect class, so they would not know some of the things that I'm about to talk about. And this morning what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk through kind of our church, how our church is structured, and then I'm going to really dive into where we're going and where we believe that God is calling us in this next year. So this morning I want to dive in first and foremost of our church. So Real Life Church as a whole started in the year of 2011. Crazy. We're 10 years old. And so you're going, how in the world are you 10 years old? You've only been here for a little more than a year. Correct. Gainesville is an extension underneath the umbrella vision of Real Life Church from down in Mountain Home. Real Life Church was founded by Pastor Vince Daniel and his wife Jennifer, and that out of them birthed this wonderful vision to show real life to real people through a real Savior, Jesus Christ. And I think that is so powerful when we get down to what that actually means. To show real life. And we don't just make that a play on words because that's our church name. But to show real life. We know John 10:10 says that a thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come so that you can have life and have it more abundantly. And so I believe that the life that we talk about is the real life that Jesus brings to us. We really hit heavy on during our Christmas season that what He brought, what He gave, was for us. And it's no different than that simple verse that I like to call them those coffee cup verses. That coffee cup verse is so true in what it means for us. Is that He came so that we can have life, real life. And so if we're going to show real life to real people, see, the vision of the church, and when I say the vision of the church, I kind of mean the dream when I say that. There is a vision of the church, and that's to show real life to real people through a real Savior, Jesus Christ. But the dream of the church, of what it would look like, is that it would be real people. How many of y'all would say that you're real people? You got problems. You walked in here this morning with problems. Maybe you had a fit with your husband or wife on the way to church this morning. Maybe you stayed up all night with puking kids. I don't know what your story is. But I guarantee you that we're real people. And that is something that is a DNA part of Real Life Church, is that we're real people. We don't have to try to put on this facade and try to make it out to be something different than what it is. We want to be real people showing real life to other real people. We wanted to, that when they birthed the church, they wanted it to be a church where anybody could come to. No matter where you've been, no matter what your experiences have been, no matter what you've done, no matter the problems, no matter the mistakes that you've made, this can be your home. And so with that, that's really just where we wanted to start the year, is to kind of tell you a little bit of backstory, but then I want to give you some structure as well. How many of you all grew up in church? Show of hands real quick. Okay, wonderful. Then I bet some of you all have been to a business meeting. Anybody? Okay, a few of you. Can I tell you something that is so awesome? We don't have those. So our church, when we get down to the structure of our church is pastor-led. Pastor-led, and then underneath him, really next to him, side is a board of elders, if you would. It's a board that keeps accountability and advisement. And guess what? We have the opportunity to have one of those that sits on that board with us every single week. Mr. Sid Smith is a member of that board that sits on that board to keep accountability to where the church is going, the vision of the church, and to keep some advisement along the way. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of dreaming that goes on. And in a church of kind of where we see ourselves and where we want to go, there's a lot of big dreams. Some dreams need to be given some guardrails. Am I right? Amen. It says amen. And that's really what that board of elders or board of advisement, that's what they do, is they put some guardrails up so that we don't get too crazy with it. And so with that, I'm excited first and foremost to be able to, one, I wish my wife was here this morning. She's at home dealing with some kids. And what I'm so excited about, and this has been trying to figure out how exactly I wanted to say this without getting emotional. When Wendy and I drove through this town the very first time, Wendy looked at me and she said, "This is our mission field." So when I said I wasn't called to Africa, it might not be Africa continent, but it was a different place. It was leaving home. It was leaving everything that we had ever known, the people that we had always been around. And when we came here, it was one of those moments where it was like, wow. I had stepped into ministry at home. I stepped into ministry at the church that we started going to when we were married, when we first got married. And so to be called out of that was huge. And we drove through the town and we saw the different things. We saw the town and country. We saw the two bullseyes that are right across the road from each other. I think that is awesome. And I'm sure every single one of you all in here have a particular one that you go to. That's what's even more awesome about it. I'm very particular. I go to the one, I've heard it's the one that people said that's out of town. It's not really out of town, it's just right across the road. I go to the one with the subway. And so it's one of those things where and I wish Whitney was here because I wish we could be able to tell you this together of what it's like carrying the vision of Real Life Church up here. A vision to Gainesville that was here long before we were ever even thought of. See, Real Life Church had a vision of Gainesville for about 3 or 4 years. Pastor Vince would pray about it. Well, it just wasn't time yet. And he would dream about it, and I'm sure you could ask Sid. They would dream about it, and it just wasn't time. And then for some reason, the year of 2020, it was time. And he called us out of the blue, and I'm telling you, carrying a vision that is so near and dear to someone's heart is one of the most exciting and one of the most hard things to do. Because I don't want to break the vision. I don't want to let down the vision that has lasted for 10 years of thriving church. But at the same point in time, I'm so excited about getting to carry a vision that has lasted 10 years. Do you know how many church plants don't make it past their first year? It's something like 80% of church plants don't make it past the first year. So, can I ask you to do something for me real quick? Give yourself a round of applause because we made it past that good one. And you all showing up each and every day. It's through you all giving each and every week like you do. It's through you all bringing families, bringing friends, bringing coworkers, saying, hey, you can't miss it. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have so much fun. Your kids are going to learn so much. I don't know who would want their kids anywhere else but a church that is teaching them right now how to be a world changer. That's their series this next month, is World Changers. And they're walking through the characteristics of what it takes to be a world changer. And so I'm excited to see what the future holds, what this year holds for kids ministry. I'm telling you, at the end of last year, there's some of the kids workers in here this morning, they can tell you for a fact, we are blowing out of the seams back there on some weekends. Some weekends, we've got 20 to 25 kids in the back room, and that is a lot of kids. But keep them coming, because that's where we can see change happen. When families come to know God together, that's where change happens. When kids learn about Jesus, and I'm telling you, I've got a 3-year-old, and it is so awesome getting to have a talk with my 3-year-old son about what the manger actually meant, what Christmas actually means. Now, he's got a little bit of the story wrong about the wise men, because he believes that the wise men brought gifts of Play-Doh. That's what they used to show up back there. But needless to say, he knew that they brought gifts. And he knew, he can tell you about Mary and Joseph, and about the baby Jesus, and about the shepherds, and about the angels. And it's so awesome as a parent. He's really learning. He's really learning. He's 3 years old and actually knows. And it's so cool. It's so cool to get to see that. It's so cool to get to experience that. Also, as a church, we want to be the church, and this is where this whole thing came from. We've said for 10 years that we don't just want to be a church that is in a community, but we want to be a church that changes a community. Amen. And so if we're going to do that, we've got to understand that change starts here. It doesn't just happen here. It doesn't just accidentally happen here. It starts here, and it starts with us. And so this morning, I kind of want to dive into some of those things about how it can actually start with us. The thing that I think is so amazing when I think about what all took place for Gainesville to actually happen. So I already told you that there was a vision long before I was ever here. Then we were brought on. And then there was a vision for a church in the year of a pandemic where we couldn't meet just anywhere because everywhere was closed. And I'm telling you, I had the moments of going, we're not going to be able to make this happen. But the vision was long before the venue was ever purchased. The vision was long before we turned this old airplane hangar into this church in just 7 weeks. And so for us, it's easy to go, you got to understand it. For the core group that sat in a little office space downtown and dreaming and praying about each and every family member that was going to be here, it's kind of easy for us to go, oh, you got to be here. You got to be here. You got to see what's going on. You got to see what God is doing. You got to see because they swung a hammer, or they laughed at me because I didn't know how to cut a piece of wood. Yes, I did that. I've gotten a little bit better. I can't say I've gotten much better. But we were building the wall in the back of the auditorium, and you know the wall kind of goes to a peak. Well, we were cutting the angled boards. I think that's called a toe wall. Am I right up there? Up there? The header wall? I don't know. Something like that. A wall. Finishes the wall at the top. So we were cutting the angle, and I was cutting it with the saw, table saw, I think, no, not table saw, I don't know, circular saw, whatever. I was cutting the wood, and we get to the other side, and I start taking apart this saw and trying to flip it the other way and all that good stuff. And Pastor Vince was up on the lip, and he goes, "Hey, Brandon, just turn the board over." Yeah, that's your pastor. But I am so glad I get to be here, and I'm so glad that I get to have the opportunity to be your pastor. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit of kind of about our church, so that maybe you can understand why we do things the way that we do, why you see, how you see things, what you see, and why it's here. And if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'd be more than happy to tell you the whys about why we do things the way that we do. That was all free. So now I'm going to get to my sermon. Y'all ready? Y'all ready to kick off this brand new year with, I hope, to be a wonderful, encouraging sermon for each and every one of you all to take into this year and to see just how we can be the change that happens here. First and foremost, I've got a couple little points. First point still has to deal with our church. What is the difference between a partner and a member? I was talking to our wonderful group of volunteers this morning during huddle, and I was telling them, I said, I want everybody to understand what it is so that everybody can tell anybody that wants to know. What is the difference between a partner and a member? And those that raised their hands that have said that they sat through business meetings, then you know what it means to be a member. What we like to say is that a partner has responsibilities where a member has rights. Pretty simple. The other way that I like is the verbiage that we kind of coined this last week of saying that partners have choices or opportunities where members have obligations. And what I mean by that is I'm not saying that membership is bad. I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing to have membership. But as a partnership, we are asking people to partner with us in what we're doing, and in the mission, and the vision, and carrying the values with us. Because I know that I carry the vision on a weekly basis. I know that our volunteers carry the vision every single time they serve here on a weekly basis. But little do you all know, you all carry our vision every single time you step outside of these walls. If we're truly here to reach one more, I and my volunteers and our volunteers of the church, we can't do it alone. And so each and every one of us have that opportunity to carry the vision outside of these walls and to reach one more. And so when we say, you know what, I'm going to be a partner in something, we say that we are doing this together. And when we do this together, we can reach a whole lot of one mores. A whole lot more of one mores than what I can do alone. And so just getting down to simple terms is being partners has to do with one of our very core values is that we're better together. Being better together means that we do things better when we are together. This whole vision, the idea of bringing change to a community that needs change, can't be done alone. It has to be done together. We were created to be together. God knew that we were better together from day one, or else He wouldn't have made another. And so if it gets down to the very principle that we are better together, then that's where it all comes about. I think sometimes we do kind of tend to get a little we kind of forget what exactly a membership really is. How many of you all like to shop at Sam's or Costco? Anybody in the room? Perfect. Then you all know what a membership is. Am I right? Now, I have a membership to Sam's. I'm a cheapskate, so I don't buy the most expensive membership. I'm like the $45 one a year. And each and every year, it never fails. I go into the store the week it's due. And they're like, do you want to tack this onto your receipt or onto your bill today? No, but if I don't get to shop here. And so we were walking through this, and we were talking about how well that kind of goes back and forth to a church. Because sometimes you see people see church as this thing that you give your money to and you get things from. You give your money to as far as offering in tithes and you get stuff from. That's not what we want to be. We want to be a church that does things together. That it's not just this thing where you bring your money here and you get stuff from. But that you go, I want to be here so bad that I can't help but tell everybody about it. Because I'm a partner, I'm not just a member. In Sam's, we were talking about this. It would be so awkward. Throwback to our awkward Christmas series. It would be so awkward if you were in Sam's and one of the people working in Sam's said, hey, would you mind helping me with something real quick? Can you help me get this down off the shelf?
What?
See, I can't do it alone. So, it would be very awkward if someone that was working there where you were walking through was like, hey, would you mind helping me with this box? I need it opened up, and would you mind helping me fold the clothes so we can lay them out just right? I'm sorry, but I'm the member here. You're the employee. And so sometimes I believe that we kind of get that mentality with church. That we start getting that mentality that well, I'm the member. I can't do anything. I can't reach out, and I don't have anything to say to somebody. Throughout this next year, I think you're going to learn that each and every one of you all do have a part to play, a huge part to play, not just in our mission, but in God's mission.
Amen.
Because as a church, we're going to talk a little bit more this morning about some hurdles that faces the church in the year 2022, and what it actually, how we can be the ones that maybe bring an answer, can solve that problem, the hurdle for the church. Second thing I want to talk about this morning is the biggest hurdles facing our community in 2022. I was kind of pressed with this question the other day. What is the biggest hurdle for Ozark County? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody know anything? Like any hurdle? The first thing I said was drugs. Anybody would agree with that? Second thing I said was poverty. I believe that those are two very big hurdles for us in Ozark County. Now, I believe there's one underlying huge hurdle out of all of it, and it's a lack of Jesus. We know the reason why we came here was because 80% of Ozark County was either unchurched or de-churched. That means they've never stepped foot in the building, or they had before and they no longer are in church.
Right.
And because of that 80%, we said we want to do our part in changing that number, in decreasing that number. And so for us, I don't believe that there's necessarily a solution per se. There is a solution, and the solution is actually us. You go, well, I'm not a drug rehab specialist. I am not a counselor. No, you're not. But you carry the mission of God with you each and every place that you go. Amen. And if any of those things are going to be taken care of, if any of those things are ever going to be solved, it's going to be through us sharing a mission of God with somebody who is in need.
Amen, amen, amen.
And it might not be because they're in need because their pocketbook is a little skinny on a certain month. It might be because they're in need of something that's missing in here. A void that they're trying to fill because something's missing in here. You see, Jeremiah 20, verse 9. I love this. I found it this week, and I think it fits so perfectly. It says, I say, I won't mention him or speak any longer in his name, but his message becomes a fire burning in my heart, shut up in my bones. I become tired of holding it in, and I cannot prevail. For each and every one of us, that should be our burning desire. Our burning desire should be that I can't hold it in any longer. Because of the experiences that I've had, because of coming through these doors, because of being in church my whole life, because of whatever your story looks like, because of a radical change, because of hitting rock bottom and Jesus pulling you out, whatever that looks like, I don't know what your story looks like, but there's some story within you that is connected to the mission of God that will help someone in need. And when we take that seriously, when we take that to heart, it should be a burning fire within us that's shut up inside of our bones like we can't even hold it in. We shouldn't be able to hold the mission of God in. We should not be able to hold the message of God in. We shouldn't be able to hold the gospel that we know inside of us. Because when we do, guess what? We're being selfish. We're being totally different than generous. We say we're a generous church. And I believe that we are. But guess what? It becomes a whole lot easier to write a check or bring some canned food or do something like that than it is to walk across the street and ask your neighbor to come to church. It might take something more than asking a neighbor. It might take you going and picking a neighbor up on a Sunday morning and bringing them to church. I know some of you all are here because of being asked. Some of you all might be here because you've been drugged here. And I don't care how you get them in the door. This is a saying that I've heard many times. I don't care how you get them in the door. As long as they get here, I'll make sure that they hear the message of God. I'll make sure that they hear the message of God because that's what this community needs more than anything. If we want to see the 80% number decrease, we've got to do our part as a partnership with the mission of God that we've been blessed with. We've all been asked as believers to be a part of the mission of God. We've all been asked to carry the message, to carry the mission of God with us each and every day to our workplace, to our homes, to our friends, to our community, wherever you're at, you are carrying the mission of God with you. And when you carry something that special, it means something. It carries weight. It shouldn't be something that you can hide inside of you and not let it come out. Last thing I want to talk about is the biggest hurdle facing the church in the year 2022. And I don't say it. I'm not just saying our church. Hear me out. I'm saying the church. Big C church. Big C church. I believe the number one hurdle, I'm only going to give you one. Number one hurdle is a flipped perspective. What do I mean by that? What I mean by a flipped perspective. This is where my bucket comes in. Believers in the room, I'm going to be talking to you for just a second. We do a really good job of coming in with an empty bucket. I've done it. I've been the one to come in with an empty bucket. And what we do is we get to church and we go, woohoo! Got a close parking spot this morning. I was greeted nicely this morning. Worship. It's pretty good. Brandon did a decent job. Now I've got a full bucket. Now I can go pour it out because my bucket's full. This is where, as believers, this bucket should always be full.
Amen.
This bucket should always be full. Yes, you pour out because you're asked to pour out. But this bucket of yours, the bucket that's me, and I say me, and I didn't write you on this because I want you to know it's me as well. Hey, I'm preaching to myself because I get it. We've got all the stuff. My wife has 2 basketball games this week. I get to go sit at a basketball game from 6 to 9 o'clock at night, 2 nights this week. It's going to be wonderful. The bucket gets empty because we're not putting in the bucket the right things. What we do is we come to church, and instead of being able to pour out something, you see, what the flipped perspective is it's no different than what we learned in the Christmas story. The wise men, they didn't come empty-handed. They came with a gift. They came with something to offer, and then they offered their worship. With a gift, and I'm not just talking about a gift. I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about things. I'm talking about each and every one of us have something that we have to offer. You have something that you have to offer. You have people that you know that need to be here. You have co-workers that you know need to be here. You have family members that you know need to be here. How many of you all would raise your hand right now and say that you could think of one person that needs to be here next week? Okay, good. That's what I thought. I kept my hand up because I know plenty that need to be right here. I know people in my family that I would love to see walk in these doors because they need to be here right now. What ends up happening, though, is instead of bringing our bucket full, of bringing our gift, bringing the stuff that God has blessed us with. Remember, He's blessed us beyond our imagination with everything that we have. Number one thing, we have Him, we have grace, we have forgiveness, we have His love. And we still bring an empty bucket. And we're not offering Him anything when we come. We're hoping to get and receive and receive. And hopefully I leave with my bucket full to make it to next week because I'll have to empty it out and come back with that empty bucket. But what we see is in Deuteronomy 16:17, it says, "Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God that He has given you." It's not that He might give you. It's not that He possibly could give you. He has already given you the blessing. So you should come not with an empty bucket, but with a full bucket so that you can offer something more. So that you get to offer something back to Him. I promise, if you take this perspective and you flip it upside down and you say, I'm committing that this year I'm going to do something different. This year I'm going to be something different. This year I'm going to offer God something more than what I've been offering Him. I promise you'll see a change in your life. And I promise you will see the change that will begin to happen here. Not just happen here, but will begin to start in your life. Will begin to start in your family. Will then go to your neighborhood, which will then go to our community, which will then go to our county. And beyond. We're not just called, from the very get-go, Jesus, when he came back to his disciples, the number one thing he told them was to go. Now go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations. All nations. What I love about that is there's nations that they did not like. There's people that I guarantee you don't like that need to be here. There's people that you don't like that need to hear the message. There's people that you don't like that need to hear your story. But are you coming with an empty bucket, or are you coming with something to offer to God? That's the perspective that we have to look at. We have to look at it through this perspective of what are we offering God when we come in this place, or are we too concerned about what we're getting from this place? Because for us as believers, once again, I'm talking about believers. Believe me, if I wasn't talking about believers, this would be a whole different story, and this would be really awkward. Because you don't know that you have a full bucket if you're not a believer. And maybe you're in the room this morning and you go, I don't have a full bucket. How can I bring a full bucket if I don't have one? It's time to find the full bucket. The full bucket is by asking Jesus to come into your life as your personal Lord and Savior. The full bucket is saying, I surrender my life to you as my Lord. That's what that means. That when you say that He is Lord over your life, you're surrendering everything over to Him. Not just part, not just some, but you're saying yes to Him for everything. For the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of your life. Every part of it is His. And He gets to change it into what He wants to change you into. Not what you want to change into. This morning, as we wrap up, I want to pray. And if anybody needs prayer, please come forward. I'm not going to ask for anything special. I'm not going to ask you to stand on your toes, stand on your head up here. If you need prayer, if you need to start this year out with prayer from people who care about you, from a family who wants to do life with you, come forward. If not, stay there and pray. Let's believe that God's going to do some amazing and wonderful things this coming year. I believe that we're going to see lives changed. I believe we're going to see baptisms just go insane this next year. We've had baptisms after baptisms. Guess what? We've got something that's going to be on the calendar that we've not done yet. We're going to have our very first child dedication in the month of February. We're going to get to see families bring their children to the church, to say, you know what, I'm in this as a family. I don't just say that this is my church, but I'm saying that I will be the parent that I need to be so that I can train my children up in the direction that God wants them to go. Every head down, every eye closed. Let's pray.